Europe is a restless continent, a continent that is constantly reinventing itself. It began to project its power into the world. The expansion of the European frontier was one of the most momentous events of all human history. The world became the theater for the playing out of European power struggles. But these encounters with other peoples and their cultures and commodities in turn had a transformative impact on Europe itself. The history of Europe's expansion is a narrative of entrepreneurial spirit, technology, curiosity, and courage, but also of violence, suppression, and exploitation. Geography has always shaped Europe's opportunities right from the very beginning. The continent is flanked to the north, the south, and the west by seas and oceans. 68,000 kilometers of coast, 3 times more than the United States. Crossing the water was the only way to expand. For people desperate to escape overpopulation, poverty, war, and hunger, there was no other option but to leave by sea, and that's still true today. Europeans have always been driven by a thirst for adventure, a lust for power, and not least by greed. Europeans become engrossed in speculations about the world beyond the world they know. They know that the earth is round, but they have no idea of what lies beyond the horizon. Why did the Renaissance become an era of European world exploration? Was it intellectual curiosity, or the competitive ambition of powerful states determined to deny each other the advantages of new possessions? The Spaniards and the Portuguese were the first. The Dutch, the British, and the French followed hard on their heels. Whatever drove them to make these perilous journeys, one thing is clear: the world would never be the same again. The race is on to find an ocean route to India. Genoese explorer Christopher Columbus is working on a plan. He offers it to the Portuguese, but they dismiss him as a madman. He carefully studies the Book of the Marvels of the World by Marco Polo, in which the Italian explorer details his adventurous journey to Asia. The book is a bestseller in Europe and feeds a desire to know unknown worlds. Perhaps Columbus can convince the Spanish to fund his plan. But that's no easy task. He spends more than 5 years begging Queen Isabella of Spain before she finally gives in. Columbus is entrusted with the task of finding gold. Why? Because the Spanish crown is bankrupt. Columbus sets sail in the summer of 1492. His crew consists of ruffians, murderers, and thieves who have nothing to lose. Not what you might call a seaworthy team. He's unable to attract better men. The fear of the end of the world is simply too powerful. Columbus grossly underestimates the size of the globe. He thinks he's on his way to India. The Atlantic Ocean seems endless, but then finally, land home. After more than 2 months of uncertainty, it seems that the sailors' prayers have been answered. The team of 3 ships has been on the verge of mutiny more than once, but finally, the sailors fish some reeds and a few twigs with berries on them out of the sea, harbingers of land. The sailors are fascinated with the flora and fauna on this unfamiliar shore. Christopher Columbus writes in his journal, "Upon disembarking, we saw a landscape with very green trees, many streams of water, and diverse sorts of fruits." Columbus is itching to seize this land. He has enough witnesses, and his crew even includes a notary to certify the entire process. Of course, the question that has them all on the edge of their seats is whether or not the land is inhabited. After all, part of their mission is to find the natives and convert them to Christianity. When they do eventually meet the locals, both sides are curious. Columbus would later report, "I was very attentive to them and strove to learn if they had any gold." And he succeeded in the name of God and the Spanish crown. The native peoples, on the other hand, are baffled. They had never seen white men before. Things would ultimately end badly for them, but the first encounters remain peaceful. While the natives innocently marvel at the new arrivals, Columbus and his men already have very clear goals in mind. Two worlds collide here. The islanders have no concept of ownership. They believe the land belongs to everyone. The Europeans, on the other hand, want to annex territory, convert people to Christianity, and exploit both the land and its inhabitants. This is where the fatal race for resources begins. Columbus calls the natives Indians. He is thoroughly convinced that he is in India. He finds the people to be friendly and not at all dangerous. He believes they would make excellent slaves. But he has actually landed on the Bahamas in the Caribbean. And although he doesn't find any gold, he is standing on the threshold of an unknown continent. The Baheim Erdapfel, the oldest globe still in existence today, was created in the very year Columbus sailed to the west. All the geographical information Europeans were aware of at that time is included on this globe, but its precision naturally varies from continent to continent. The Atlantic extends all the way from Europe to Asia. Both continents are a bit too big, and there's nothing in between them. Or is there something? A terra incognita. But why did all of this originate from Europe and not from what was then an already powerful and technologically advanced China? When the third emperor of the Ming dynasty ascended the throne in 1402, he sent out a gigantic fleet to sail to Africa and Arabia. But when he died, the new emperor received a memorandum from his advisors. They wrote, "Your servants hope that your majesty will not permit warlike plans and the gaining of glory by expeditions to distant lands. Give your people a period of rest." Whereupon the new emperor promptly decreed that high seas navigation would henceforth be punishable by death. The Chinese leadership simply had little interest in the outside world. China sufficed unto itself. Moreover, they had only one ruler. Power was focused in one place. There was no competition, not at least in the world of power politics. In Europe, almost as big as China, everything was different. It was shared among many sovereign territories with just as many rulers, and they kept goading each other on, even as they set their sights beyond the margins of the continent. Discoveries and conquests became weapons in a continental power struggle. To prevail in this struggle, you had to be open to new ideas and always ready for the big move. Hordes of armed men follow Columbus to the New World. They have nothing to lose in Spain, and they hope to find a better future across the ocean. They board ships heading west, and along with their horses, they advance deep into Central America. This land must harbor incredible treasures, they think. Legends like El Dorado, a Central American ruler so rich that he supposedly covers himself in gold dust every morning and washes it off every evening in a sacred lake, only serve to increase their thirst for adventure. But where is El Dorado, and where are his piles of gold and silver? The conquest of the New World offers immense opportunities to the restless, underemployed men of the Iberian Peninsula. As conquistadores, they strike deep inroads into the Americas, driven by greed, missionary zeal, and the desire for status. The main competitors of the Spanish are the Portuguese, an experienced seafaring nation. They too have an insatiable desire to explore the world in search of opportunities that will give them an advantage over their rivals. 5 years after the discovery of America, explorers Vasco da Gama and Bartolomeu Diaz set off for India. They round the dreaded Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa and become the first Europeans to actually make it to India via this route. There's an astonishing dynamism to this process of European expansion. Competition with the Spanish crown drives the Portuguese to keep extending the range of their operations, and the extraordinary success of this small European country suggests that they must be doing something right. It was with these ships, caravels, that the Portuguese first reached Africa, India, Brazil and Japan. Without such craft and their later and larger follow-up versions, the Europeans wouldn't have discovered anything, let alone conquered it. And what lay behind them was nothing less than cutting-edge technology. The caravel was the space shuttle of its era. Very fast, extremely stable, storm-resistant, and able to navigate in shallow coastal waters. Incidentally, there are virtually no written records of how this breakthrough invention was achieved. It was all kept secret. The shipbuilders passed their knowledge from generation to generation by word of mouth. After all, the competition was always watching. European audiences are enthralled by the explorers' travel journals and by the stories of their adventures, which describe breathtaking landscapes with lavish natural wonders around every corner. A life of prosperity and abundance seems possible there. The natives must surely be doing well for themselves if they can afford the kind of spices only possessed by the wealthiest Europeans. In the race for conquest outside of Europe, Spain and Portugal remain bitter competitors. Now the Pope plans to step in to arbitrate the conflict. In 1494, a treaty is negotiated in Spain to regulate each country's holdings. Using a simple method, the world is divided into two halves.
You servant, take this cord and stretch it across the map. Right down the middle. Like this. That's how we'll divide the world.
No, that won't do. You, move more to the right. Further, further, and you, the other. Further to the left. Good. That's how the border should be. Here is my part, and
No! No way!
The Treaty of Tordesillas is intended to establish a definitive peace between the two rivals. America, to the west of this randomly fixed line, is promised to the Spanish kings, while all the territory to the east, meaning Africa and Asia, goes to the Portuguese. The treaty doesn't even consider the other maritime powers such as England and Holland. The conflict over global wealth now begins in earnest, and the competition among the European powers grows even fiercer. Everything changed. Europe's view of the world, its prosperity, its greed for more and more. The violence of this conflicted continent was projected outwards onto other peoples with horrific consequences. The explorers were followed by the conquerors. They set out into a strange and unfamiliar world, lured by legendary treasures and adventure.